What's up, everybody? It's Critical. I just want to give you all an evaluation of a film I recently watched called The Legend of the Titanic. I know many of you out there are big fans of the Titanic. It's a very it's a good movie. And I know many of you, like me, are hungry for more tales from the Titanic, so I found this film hoping that it would satiate my thirst for more Titanic action, and my goodness, was I not let down. So the movie stars these mice, among other animals, and delivers many of the same messages that James Cameron's Titanic film delivered, such as the dangers of whaling, how evil sharks can be, and how strong octopuses are. So let's just get right into it. Similar to James Cameron's film, the movie is just one giant flashback. These young mice are asking this mouse right here with vitiligo about his trips on the seas, and then one reads the paper.
Tragic ending to the maiden voyage of the Titanic. The liner goes down. 100 missing. A lot of people died, huh?
Well, youngster, it's a long and complicated story. The truth of the matter is that those missing persons were never really missing. It's all a misunderstanding. One of these days, I'll tell you the whole story.
So after disregarding the deaths of hundreds on the Titanic, the grandfather attributes it to simply a misunderstanding. The passengers aren't dead, just misunderstood. He refuses to tell his story until this kid picks up a Wii remote. Once the Wii remote is in his hands, the grandfather springs into action and begins telling one of the most riveting tales I've ever seen from a movie. So the clocks dial back and you see a younger version of himself. He's a ship hand helping get mice on board the Titanic. Then you're introduced to the equivalent of Rose. Her name is Elizabeth, and she's having a conversation with her father about not wanting to marry Everard, and her father sounds like he's perpetually about to sneeze.
Well, behave yourself. Must I remind you that Everard Maltravers has asked for your hand, and that your stepmother and I both consider it an excellent match.
So he's borderline impossible to understand throughout the film, but I guess he's kind of a cool character if you're not looking at the screen or paying any attention at all to the movie. Elizabeth then sees Don Juan and is immediately fascinated because Don Juan is cutting the rug with his dog. He is just busting it wide open with his canine. So she's immediately already interested in this man, and this man then tells his dog to go go introduce itself to her, but instead the dog goes out of its way to ejaculate on the foot of a very sad man. A confused Abraham Lincoln buys a newspaper, then remembers he can't read. You then learn that Everard, the man with the arranged marriage with Elizabeth, is a whaler. He talks to his assistant Jeffrey about how awesome it is to have money and power.
There's nothing in the world that counts besides money and power.
You then get an aerial view of the Titanic on the seas. It looks like something straight out of a PlayStation 1 cutscene, and it's very powerful and moving. Elizabeth exhibits brief self-awareness and begins to cry after realizing she's trapped in the weirdest fucking movie I've ever seen. Her tear runs down her neck over her titties and falls onto the nose of a dolphin, igniting a small series of fireworks and sending that dolphin on a brief LSD trip. This, however, gives her the ability to understand the dolphins, and this phenomenon is explained by Dolphin.
You can understand us thanks to a net of magic moonbeams that caught your tears as they fell into the water. We added a little magic of our own, and voila! The spell was cast.
Now, the flying dolphin's scientific explanation may be a bit shoddy, however it does serve as something, because we all know about magic moonbeams and dolphin magic. So Elizabeth now takes on the role of Eliza Thornberry, and with her newfound power does absolutely nothing with it. After Elizabeth learns that Everard just wants to keep whaling, Everard sends Jeffrey on a mission to get in contact with a very special source and deliver a very important message. So to do this, he gives him a whistle that gives him the powers of Aquaman, and he gets in contact with a shark from Boston.
Hey, what's going on? Jeffrey's my man. Talk to me, baby.
After a very brief and uninteresting conversation, Jeffrey tells the shark to stay near the boat, and that the big message is that Everard wants them near the boat.
Just stay alert and don't stray too far from the ship.
Eventually, Connors and Ronnie talk to Elizabeth directly, and they become great friends immediately. Elizabeth, with the help of them, believes that she can not only stop whaling, but kill Everard.
You've gotta fight.
Of course I'm going to fight. Now I know you two are on my side. We can foil Everard and help those poor whales too.
And count on us.
Elizabeth is a very trusting person. She puts very much faith into two mice she just met. However, it's a good thing she did because Connors and Ronnie, along with the help of Don Juan's dog Smiley and two birds that were in a cage but released from the cage by Connors and Ronnie, arrange a meeting between Don Juan and Elizabeth. Yes, that is the actual music that played during this scene. It's not me going berserk on a xylophone, nor is it the intro to Rugrats. That is the actual orchestral music they played during that scene. The Mouse Philharmonic then plays a very moving symphony that encourages Don Juan and Elizabeth to dance. And they dance. Oh boy, do they dance. They dance for a solid 3 minutes of screen time, uninterrupted. And it ends with a very emotional kiss. If you found yourself tearing up during the original Titanic, I assure you you'll be bawling your eyes out during this scene if you watch it in its entirety. Then every animal on the ship comes out here to celebrate because they love that shit. And then they dance again for 5 more minutes and they dance fucking weird. And then Elizabeth and Don Juan fuck. They really mash pissers nicely, and then you see the ship without any colors on it because they forgot to render the colors during this scene. Ronnie and the other douchebag, I forgot his name, hear Everard wants to sink the ship.
Our ears, we heard him say he's planning to sink a ship. We were thunderstruck.
Jeffrey pets a very unappealing dog and walks away speaking gibberish.
Man, I can't see a hipster goody thing.
Jeffrey then goes to the sharks to help sink the Titanic. It has to be sunk at midnight. There's no explanation for why midnight specifically.
The ship has to sink tonight, but remember, not a second before midnight, or else all your work will have been for nothing.
To sink the Titanic, the Shark Clan calls upon the power of a bodybuilding octopus named Tentacles. The plan is to throw an iceberg in front of it. While this is happening, Everard and Jeffries pull a gun on Elizabeth's father.
Why don't you sit down, my lord?
You deaf?
I'd like to break down that scene. He asks if he would sit down, and the father obliges. He sits down, and Jeffries has the audacity to ask if he's deaf, even though he's already sitting down. I found that scene to be rather troubling. While I found it to be a very good scene and crucial to the overall plot, I did not like the inconsistency. He was already sitting down. You don't need to ask if he's deaf. He's not deaf. He sat down. But what he wanted him to sign the whaling papers, and then his wife comes in and wants to redo his will, so that way she gets everything after he gets killed by Everard and Jeffries. Pretty fucked up. So Tentacles hurls the iceberg like it's nothing but a bag of dog shit, and then the dolphins tell him what he just did was not very nice and he should feel bad, so he feels bad and wants to fix it. Meanwhile, Everard, Jeffrey, and these two hoes get away on this lifeboat while the Titanic is on a collision course with the iceberg. The Titanic starts to sink, but everyone is still polite, even amongst the chaos. Did you hear that excuse me from the gentleman that just got run into? That's incredible, good stuff. This man gets so upset he forgets how to speak. Upon realizing that the wires were cut that would allow for a successful SOS transmission, the mice do the only logical thing and attach the wires to this mouse's mustache. The plan was successful. The SOS was transmitted successfully. However, it came at a great cost, because as you just saw, it electrocuted that mouse. He sacrificed himself for the greater good. He's a hero. He did it. Nice work. Tentacles then throws 3 sharks like missiles and kills them. So that was some really cool shit. Nice work, Tentacles. While running away from some water, they find Elizabeth's father. He seems mildly upset, but not that disturbed, so they free him. Tentacles is then trying to hold the ship in one piece, preventing it from breaking apart. Good job, Tentacles. He's successful. He holds it together. He then profusely apologizes and says how it's all his fault. The dolphins then inform them that the whales are coming. So the whales start coming, and everyone's happy, until Tentacles' tentacle slips. And then pay very close attention to this. Did you fucking see that? That's something I'd like to break down once again. That is an octopus that just took a breath before going underwater. That leads me to believe that he can't actually breathe underwater, therefore he's just suffocating and literally just miserable 90% of his life. Because he lives underwater, that poor fucking thing. As the ship goes under, Ronnie, Connors, Don, Elizabeth, and Smiley all jump off the ship onto a whale and are safe. The captain then waves at another ship, so now everyone else is safe. Everyone is safe except for Tentacles. Tentacles drowns. He was suffocating for years and then just finally drowned. And then these 4 are lost at sea. Then Don and Elizabeth get married. It's really touching. And then Connors and Stella get married. I'd like to point out Stella was only in this movie for 3 scenes, but they got married. And then Tentacles isn't really dead. And everyone seems totally cool that the Kraken's touching their bridge.
Tentacles, you are a true hero. You saved my life by putting your own in danger. And the many...
The captain tries to give a really inspirational speech, but pauses way too many times, and it just seems super weird, and I don't like it. And then it turns out this mustache, this mouse with the mustache turns out isn't dead. And then everyone dances again. and then the grandfather tells everyone to go to bed because that's the story of what actually happened on the Titanic. Now, overall, I would say this movie definitely fits right in with James Cameron's Titanic. I feel as though they're in the same league in terms of quality and story. I didn't cry quite as much during the James Cameron's version as I did during this one. This one was a lot sadder for all the wrong reasons. In fact, it was just very hard to sit through and watch in its entirety, but I did it, and I did shed some tears over it. I didn't enjoy it that much. However, upon looking back at it now, I definitely see that it is definitely a masterpiece of cinema type shit and whatever. Legend of the Titanic's a good movie. Good stuff. Nice work. Good movie.